and then we'll start the Mishnah Daf Yudam and Aleph. So the last thing we asked, as we said, we discussed the idea of Palgin and Debura, and we asked that the halacha is we don't say Palgin and Debura. So then the Gemara asked that the chayra we see by the case of the Shechimina that if the Shechimina said Kol Nechasa Nesunim Lach, and then he got better, so the Nechasim go back to the original Shechimina, and the Eved goes free. So the chayra I do see that I say Palgin and Debura. So the Gemara says over there that's nothing to do with Palgin and Debura. It has to do with the idea of that the get has to be a proper get. Then we said in Yeshalav Eirin Yiskayim B'Chaismav. So the Gemara asked who exactly is protesting. If it's one guy, so how could one? Whenever you have an error, it has to be at least two. So he says the two people are. If it's two people, why are these two people less than the two people that are being Mekayim B'Chaismav? So the Gemara says, really, who's protesting is the husband protesting. Now we brought down the Mishnah of when a Shliach Leilacha brings a get from Dinas Hayam and it cannot say B'fanei Nichtav or B'fanei Nechtam. So if there's Aiden that recognize the signatures on the get, Yiskayim B'Chaismav, and we said this is Sai Gittin Daf and Sai Shechur Avadim are equal, that when you bring either the get or the Shtar Shechur from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, to Chutz La'aretz, or from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, you have to say B'fanei Nichtav or B'fanei Nechtav. These are one of the ways that they're similar. So the Gemara asks, what does it mean in Yachol he cannot speak? So the Gemara says you can't say Chedesh because a Chedesh you're not allowed to take, not allowed to send as a Shliach. Rather, who are we talking about? We're talking about a Pikeach. And rather, we're talking about somebody who was a pikeach, and by the time that he gave the get to this woman, the shliach leilacha gave the get to the woman, he became a mute. So that's what we say is yiskayim b'chaismav. Then we said echad gittin daf, echad shechur avadim. So the Gemara brought a brisa. There's three ways that they're similar. Number one, meidach umevi. Number two is that every get that has a kuti on there is possible except for gittin daf and shechur avadim. And the third thing we says is that all the starters that you bring into the Goyish court and signed by Goyim, so it's kosher except for Gittin Nashim and Shechuri Avadim. Now Rameir said there's a fourth one that when you tell somebody give this get to my wife or Shtar Shechur Zeh La'avdi, so the halacha is if he wants he could retract according to the Tanakama in both of them. Sorry, Divrei Meir, which means that you could retract in both of them. So the Gemara says that Meila, according to the Chachamim, you're saying three and not four, which will come to exclude this case. That if you say 10 get zeli ishti ushtar shichur zela avdi, that he cannot retract, meaning that they're not similar because only in the case of Gittin you could retract, but not in the case of shtar avadim. But according to them, Rameir, why did you pick a number 4? So he says, the case of Aiden that don't know how to sign their names on the star, so you sketch it and you let them fill their names with ink. Shimon ben Gamliel says this only works for Gittin and Ashram and not Shechur Avadim and other staris. They have to, if they don't know how to read and sign, then it's not good. So then the Gemara asks, who mentioned anything about reading? So the Gemara says and you have to just amend certain things in the brisa. So then the Gemara asked, you're saying there's no more cases, but I'll find you that if a person said 10 get zeli ishti yishar shichur zela avdi and died, so you can't, the shliach cannot give it after the misa. But in regards to money, he could. So the Gemara says, so we see that they are similar in this case. So the Gemara says is we taught shtaris is milsa de lesser b'shtaris, things that are not common in shtaris, things that are common in shtaris like Ketani. And the Gemara says that the Shalach Rabbin Rav Mishmid Rabavo, you should know that the Rebbe Lazar sent to the Geila that the Shechimina that says Kisvu Tnu Money Leplenia and dies, we do not write it and give it because maybe he had in mind that it should only be given after the shtar is being makna. And we know there's ein shtar lachar misa. Frankly, Gemara there's the Shema. Why don't we say that they're similar in those cases? Mele Rabba, who mentions it in Meilach Hamevi, but according to Rava, there's a question also. Bein the Rabba, bein the Rabba, you had the case of Mechuber, the Karka, it's possible in both cases. So the Gemara answers and says, I only taught Psulim that Rabbanan Deiraisa I did not teach. Frankly, Gemara, but you know our koyes of Edik Kachavim that's possible Deiraisa, and we did teach it. So he says, no, that's going to go like Rabbi Lazar, who says Eidim is Siri Karti. So the Gemara says, but in the Sefer I said Reb Shimon holds Af Eluk Shamim, and Rabbi Zera says that he goes the Shittas Rabbi Elazar, it must be the Tanakama that don't hold that way. So the Gemara says the difference between them will be Shemus Muvakin. So the Gemara said the Chayr Chazara is the Iraisa. So the Gemara says is Kiktani is Milsa, which is not Kiddushin, things which are Milsa, they could be Kiddushin like Kittani. Tried the Gemara, the Chazara case of Kiddushin is taught. So he says no, by Shlichus, by Shliach, when the husband sends Shliach to divorce his wife, Bal Karcha, and then he is Mevatel the Shlichus, that this Shlichus only is by Gershon but not Kiddushin, because a woman only can be Mekudeshes Mirtzayna. So the Brisa mentions that Din Chazara, because in this case the Shliach could, because when the Shliach retracts, there's like no Kiddushin. Okay, that's where we're holding till now. So now the Gemara says that we're holding Daf Yud Amud Aleph, by the Mishnah. The Mishnah says Kol get, any get, which we said over here, get means any document. Sheyesh alav eit kuti, that they have the signature of a kuti signed on a document. Puzzle, it's puzzle. Chutz mikiti nashim v'shichruri avadim, except for the case of a get or shichruri avadim, that a kuti that signs on it, it's kosher. The Gemara says ma'aser shevilu fnei Rabbi Gamliel lekfar usnai get isha. There was a ma'aser that was brought in front of Rabbi Gamliel in the village of Usnai. They brought get isha v'hayu eid dov eidei kusim, and there was witnesses who were kutim, and the hichsher, and he made it valid. So the Gemara now wants to know mani mastisin, who is the opinion? Our Mishnah said that kol get sheyesh of eid kuti is puzzle, except for Gittin Daf shechrurei avadim. So the Gemara wants to know who exactly is the Tana of the Mishnah. Loi Tana Kama, v'loi Rabbi Elazar, v'loi Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. And the Gemara says, the Tanya we learned in the Brisa, matzah kuti, if a kuti has matzah on Pesach, mutares, you're allowed to, this matzah is not considered chometz. A kuti who makes matzah, we say it's kosher matzah. However, and v'adam yetzu ba yidei chivasi b'Pesach, a person can fulfill his obligation to eat matzah on the first night of Pesach with this matzah. That's according to the Tanakama. Rabbi Elazar says no. The kuti matzah is puzzle, is asr, is prohibited. V'she'ein b'kiyim b'dikduke mitzvahs, because the kutim are not well versed in the details of mitzvahs. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says a third opinion. Kol mitzvah she'echziku ba kutim, any mitzvah that the kutim embraced and accepted. So harbe midaktikim ba, they are more medactic in the observance even than Yisrael. That's what the Brisa said. So the Gemara says, Mani, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah. Now, what does that mean? Tanakama, if you're going to say that's the opinions of the Tanakama hold afilu shar shtaris nami. Even other shtaris, I could rely on the kutim, because the kutim there's no issue with them, according to the Tanakama. Now, Rabbi Elazar, if it's the Shittas Rabbi Elazar, he's going to hold afilu get isha nami, like that when you have a kuti signed on a get isha, it's possible. Now, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, if it's Shittas of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, so it's very simple. Ida achsuk, if it's something that the kutim embrace, so afilu shar shtar is nami, so other documents as well, the testimony should be valid. So we look, if it's something that the kutim embrace, it's valid. If not, and ida lo achsuk, if it's something that the kutim do not embrace, so then afilu get isha nami loy. So the get of isha should not work. So the Gemara says mimalashach. To say that it's the Tanakama will hold even other shtares kutim should be kosher. According to Rabbi Elazar will tell you even get isha is possible, and we know our Mishnah says that get nashim v'shechura avadim by a kuti is kosher. Now, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who was the third opinion, according to him, if I'm looking where the kutim are machzik, they embrace the mitzvahs. So just look, if they embrace this mitzvah, so good. If they don't embrace the mitzvah, then it's no good. So the Gemara says, "V'chi tema," and if you're going to say that the opinion of the Mishnah is the Shimon Gamliel, so the Shimon Gamliel, and you're going to say that, you know what, the kutim, they embrace the mitzvah of Gittin, and they're medayek on Gittin, but they don't embrace the mitzvah associated, let's say, with other documents. So the Gemara says, if so, my yechad. Why do we say that the get is valid in a case when there's one kuti, right? We said kol get sheish alav 8 kuti. Why are you saying 8 kuti? Why are you saying one 8? Even if you had 2 Aiden who are kutim assigned over there, so alama it should work. Alama Rabbi Elazar. Why did Rabbi Elazar say that lo yichshidu ela eid echad kuti bavad? That the Chachamim said that the get is good only when there's one kuti witness signed on it. Why? If it's Rav Shimon ben Gamliel and we're looking about if they embrace the mitzvah or not, so if they embrace the mitzvah, so even 2 kutim written on the get should be kosher.
Maybe at least 1.
Yeah, but that's not what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah says kol get sheish alav 8 kuti. What if it had 2? So it's mashma be puzzle. The question is why. Okay, so let's so the Gemara says la'edam Rabbi Elazar. Really, the opinion is Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Elazar we know as a rule he does not rely on the get. What does Rabbi Elazar said that oisher lefishem became b'tukim mitzvah. So l'chera, why is our Mishnah kosher? It says k'gain dechasim Yisrael b'seif. The Mishnah is referring to a case where a yid signed the document last. In other words, he signed it after the kuti. The kuti first signed the document, and then the yid signed it. Okay, Daf Yud Amud Beis.
What's the chiddush about the kuti then?
Oh, so what's the chiddush? The ilad the kuti chaver hava. So like this, the cheshbon is if the kuti was not somebody who was devoted and meticulous to mitzvahs, loy machtem loy mikamei. So then the yid would not have allowed him to sign the document first. So he says a very fashta cheshbon. The yid is signing the document last. If this guy, this kuti, did not sign on the document, he wasn't a chaver, he wasn't a erlicha person, he wasn't somebody you could rely on, so the yid would never sign on it. I'm not going to sign on the document. He knows what the document is. He knows.
So what makes him a kuti?
What makes him a kuti?
Well, the first guy's a kuti.
He comes. There's a whole. That's the whole thing. If the Gedi Emes, now we spoke about it before you came. If that it's a takana they made, it's a gzeda they made on them, because really there's a machlekes if they're Gedi Emes or not. But we say that they still have a chazaka that they're shakranim, that they're liars. Right. So if this guy signed after him, it must be that he holds that the guy is a good guy. He's a good kuti. So the Gemara says, if so, then the Mishnah, other documents should also be valid if a yid signed after the kuti, and our Mishnah said dafke Gittin. So the Gemara says this: Ella amrina ravcha shvak leman the kashish minei. Now, he says this. This is not the case with regards to other documents, because we say that the fact that a yid signed last doesn't prove that the kuti was a chaver. Perhaps he's signing last because he was leaving space above his signature for the one who's older than he is. And what happened? Instead, a kuti came and signed the document. So Ramez, he signed it. He didn't sign he's the first aid, but he signed it on the second line because he thought, I don't know, some older guy is going to be signing the get. And what happened was the guy never showed up, and the kuti pulled a fast one and signed on it. So the question is now. So what's the shaila? If so,
he's not signing off on the kuti.
Right. So he's not signing off on the kuti. So if he's not signing off on the kuti, why is the get and the get and the shtar shichur okay? While other documents, if you have in the aid, if that's the case, so how come by the get it works, the shtar shichur works, and by other documents it doesn't work? So Amar Papa says, this means to tell me that a get ein chaismin zeh b'lei zeh. That when it comes to a get, so the halacha is that it should come out that the difference between a get, shtar shichur, and other documents is that witnesses by a get and a shtar shichur are not allowed to sign one without the other. So each, in other words, when the witnesses sign, they have to be together and they have to sign one after another. So a yid, if a yid is signing with a kuti and he's signing with him, he would know if the kuti is a valid witness or not. Now, in regards to other documents, the halacha is that witnesses are not required to sign the documents in each other's presence. So the signature of a yid doesn't indicate at all that the kuti that's signed on there is a kosher kuti. So the Gemara says, the Gemara asks my time, what's the reason that the witnesses, by the case of a get and shtar shir have to sign together? And Rashi says, the Chacham made a decree due to a case where the husband says, all of you what? All of you are witnesses on the get. So in that case, if any of them fails to sign the get is puzzle. So the Chacham made a gzera that witnesses must sign a get together in all cases, because God forbid if the husband's going to say you are all Eidim and one of them misses it, so then the get will be a puzzle get. Okay, we're holding now Gufa. The line starts with Mishum Kulchem. Gufa. Now let's focus on what we said before. Rabbi Lazar said that when it comes to a get and there's one witness of a kuti, so it's kosher. So Mar says, "My kamashmalan." What exactly is he teaching us? Tanina, we learned this we learned this already. We learned it in the Mishnah. Kol get sheyeshalav eit kuti pasal. The Mishnah says clearly, any document that has a kuti witness on it is pasal, except for get and shtar shichur. So what does this teach? So the Cher is mashma that those are kosher only if they have the signature of one, not two. So what are you saying? La yichshidu be'ela echad kuti bilvad. Well, the Mishnah says kol get sheyeshalav eit kuti is pasal, except for the get and shtar shichur, which is mashma, like you said before. If you have two, obviously it's puzzle. So why does he have to tell? What's he being mechadish? So the Gemara says, even maslisin, if we learned this from the Mishnah alone, have amina afilu trei nami. I would have said that even two kutim are also kosher for a get and a shtar shichur. And why did our Mishnah mention only one? Mishum the b'shtar is afilu chad nami loy. Because the fact that the Mishnah teaches only one witness is because it wants to be medayik that for other shtaris, even one kuti is also possible. That's what I would think. So Kamash Ran, therefore, Rabbi Lazar teaches us that in the case of a get, only one kuti is kosher. In other words, but if two witnesses are kutim, then the get is possible.
Is that because the yid has to sign off on the kuti? That's why you need a yid
Yeah.
on it?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason. One only a yid is allowed to sign off, and not a two kuti, because you need somebody to sign off on the kuti.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So the Gemara says Trei loy, and our two kutim witnesses not accepted on a get. It says clearly in our Mishnah that there was a story that they brought in front of Gamliel to Kfar Isnani, Agat Isha, and what does it say? And there was witnesses of Eidei Kutim, which teaches us that there was two Eidim, and he was Machshir, Tvichshir. So Rabbi notes, Tani, not Eidav, but Eidoi, his witness. Rava Amar Rava says, let them today, really there was two Kutim. But Rabbi Gamliel, Miflag Palik, and Rabbi Gamliel disagrees with the Tanakama. Rabbi Gamliel machshir b'shnayim. Rabbi Gamliel is machshir with two kutim. Ma'aseh nami shevilu from Rabbi Gamliel l'kfar yistin ketisha. And you see clearly v'ya edav edei kutim v'hichshir. Okay, third Mishnah of the Masechta. Mishnah says, Kol hashtaris ha'olim bar kodesh shel goyim. All documents produced in goyish courts, af al pi shechesmeim goyim. So even though that their signatures are goyish signatures, so kshedim, they could be used. These documents could be used in a beis din. Chutz Gittin Daf, except for divorce and shichruri. Shimon says, Af elu kshedim. Shimon says, even these are kosher. Again, so which was mashma, the Gemara is going to ask on this later, but it's mashma that if you have edim of Gittin Daf and shichruri avadim, it's kosher. And these two types of documents are mentioned only when they are prepared by a hedyet and not beis din. Okay, so we have to understand exactly what that means. So let's read the Gemara. Now, with regards to the ruling in the Mishnah, that
Divorce that's given in court.
so let's see. So he says like this. No. Nashim doesn't work. No, it says chutz mi Gittin Nashim Shechur Rabbanim. Oh, the Gemara is going to ask Rabbi Shimon. The Gemara is going to ask in a second what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Hashem.
No, it's halacha.
I'm talking about Hashem.
We learn Gzeir Shava from Gittin. Law. The Gemara learns Gzeir Shava that. So we brought before. We brought a brisa that there's three similarities between shtar shichur and a get. But the Gemara learns that from Gzeir Shava that they're similar. Okay, the Gemara, it's a good childless. The Gemara asks that. Yeah. Okay, so now like this. Now with regards to the ruling of the Mishnah, that all documents written in a Goyish court are valid. So the Gemara says, Kapasik v'tani. So the Tana teaches the general halach in the Mishnah, and loishna mecher, loishna matana. There's no difference if the document is concerning a sale, and there's no difference if the document is concerning a gift. In other words, that say a sale and say a gift, if it's made in a Goyish court and signed in a Goyish court, it's kosher. So the Gemara says, Bishlei memecher, granted in the case of a sale, so it makes sense. Michiyoy zuzi kamayu hu dekoni. Because when the buyer gave money to the seller in the presence of, let's say, the Goyish court, so the buyer giving the money to the seller, he acquired the property. Because at the end of the day, he made a kinyan. Now, ushtara raya ba'amu, and the document is just a proof. It's a proof that there was an acquisition. Now, if you're not given the money in the presence of the Goyish court, well, they have a mari nafshaya because he would not act on his own and write a document for him, because the document basically is detailing the sale would not be accurate, and writing such a document would reflect poorly on him. So the document clearly serves as a proof that the acquisition was performed in the correct manner. So that's by a mechira. Ela matana, but with regards to a gift, what means does the person receiving the gift acquire it from the giver? Lav b'hai shtara. Is it not through the star? Now, and this document is like a shard. As a document written by Goyim is not considered a legal document according to halacha. So Amar Shmuel says a very famous din, dina de machusa dina, the law of the kingdom is the law. In other words, a yid has to obey the laws of the state that they live in. So every yid, every form of property transfer accepted by the local courts is considered a good sale. The Gemara says, Tani, read chutz mi Gittin Nashim. That you should read in the that they're all valid except for Gittin Nashim. In other words, the distinction is between different types of documents. Documents that are meant to serve only as a proof are kosher, even if they were in Goyish courts. Documents that have it's a legal status, like for example a get, that's going to be puzzle if they were written by the courts. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Shimon Aimer af eluk shedin. Like this is what you were asking. Shimon says that in regards to Gittin, if you have Gittin, they are kosher even if they were written in the Goyish court and were signed by Goyim. So the Gemara asks, according to Shimon, but Goyim, they're not subject to the halachas of krisus. In other words, since the halachas of marriage and divorce in the Torah are stated exclusively regards to Yidden, so Goyim cannot be shluchim over here. So Rav Zeder says, meaning Goyim cannot sign on a star, cannot sign on a document of a get. So Rav Zeder yard of Shimon l'shitas of Sheb Lazar, the Amar Edei Mesira Karti. So Rav Zeder says that Rav Shimon follows the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, who says that the witnesses of, like we said, Edei Mesira Karti, in other words, the signing of the get is not essential to make it effective. So the transfer of the Gittin, that completes the act of divorce. And basically we don't pay attention to the signatories. Yeah, the Eidim are the Yidden, yeah. Again, because Rabbi Lazar holds that what's the essential way to have the effectiveness of the get, the Chalisa Gittin, is only Eidim Mesira Karti. Frag the Gemara, 1
But
second.
is it written up by the court or it's just a sign?
Doesn't matter. We don't care as long even if there's Eidim that till now we think that we don't care if the Eidim are goyim, as long as 2 Eidim, kosher Eidim, saw the Mesir of the get, then it should be kosher.
Right, but this case over here, what we're talking about is talking about the actual document was also written up in the
Yeah,
court?
yeah.
Or it's just that the
No, the
document
document also.
was signed off in the court. Could have been Yid that wrote the whole get, but it's signed off in the court.
So bepashtus, it's bepashtus, it's signed. I mean, we're discussing now that it's signed off.
Right, I'm not sure if the entire get was made in the court or just the chesimis were made in the court.
I think it's the chesimis because also a get needs to be the shema.
Right, that's what.
Right. Okay. Fine. But the point is, so now what's the question? Rabbi says, Rabbi Elazar agrees that Mela, like we said before, Eidim is Sir Karti. But if you're going to have a document, that in the document you're going to mess yourself over by having Eidim which are puzzle, it's going to mess you up. So L'cheda, if it's Mezuyev Metechi, you can't say Eidim is Sir Karti and Eidim don't do anything. It's not true. Eidim which are Mezuyev Metechi do go and affect your get. So the Gemara says, Hachamaya Skinan, what are we dealing with over here? Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Talking about b'shemis muvakin. We're dealing with a case of they're like ambiguous Goyish names, in which case there's no need to be concerned that people might rely on these individuals as witness because everybody knows that they're Goyim and they won't rely on the Goyish names. So the Gemara says, Hey Chidami, the shemis muvakin. What are these shemis muvakin? So the Papa said, Hurmis, Danya. This was like the Goyish names back then. Bar Shiftai, Bar Kidrai, Buti, Onikim Unum. This is all the Goyish names then. Okay, we'll stop over here. Let's do a Chazorah. Okay. All right. So just a reminder again, because I keep getting the same question. If I'm planning on doing 2 blot every day, the answer is no. It's way too intense. It's hard to prepare and hard to keep up. So I'm just trying to get to a lot of people who are on the Daf Yomi cycle try to ask me that they would appreciate if we can go together with them. So today I think they're holding Daf Tesvav. They started in the new parak today. So we're like 5 blot behind. So 8:15 I'm going to start every day. So just till today is Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, we're going to go a little bit fast. And then I made a cheshbon, I think Sunday or Monday, we should be 8:15 back to a number today. Well? Okay, so the Mishnah said that any get that has an aid kuti, that has a kuti as an aid, is possible except for Gittin Daf and Shechur Avadim. Then the Gemara brought a Maisa in front of Rabbi Gamliel. That in the Kfar Utanya they brought a get of a woman that had Eidei Kutim on there and he was Machshir. So the Gemara says, who is the Tana of our Brayse? It can't be the Tana Kama, can't be Rabbi Elazar, and can't be the Shimon Gamliel. And he said like this: Matzah, if you have regular matzah of a kuti, so then it's mutter and a person could be Mekayim is chayiv of matzah over there. Rabbi Elazar says that the kutim we don't trust if Yishem became the mitzvahs. Ashbag says kol mitzvahs that they're careful about. They're even more careful than the Yidin. So the Gemara asked, who is this like? If it's the Tanna Kama is going to hold that the Kutim are just fine. So even other stories it should work. And if it's Rebbe Elazar, even get Isha, he'll hold will not work. And if it's Rebbe Shimon Gamliel, so just look. If they're machzik in machzik, so even other stories should work. And if they're not careful, so get Isha should not work also. So the Gemara says, if you're going to tell me it's Rebbe Shimon Gamliel, and you're going to say that Gittin they're machzik, other than that, machzik. So if that's true, why are you saying that if there's only one get, one aid on the get, even 2 aidim should also make it kosher? Why did Rabbi Elazar say that the Yechshidu by Ella aid echot kuti bavad? So the Gemara says really it's Rabbi Elazar who holds that kutim are not trustworthy. What was the lashon he used? Ein bikim b'tukei mitzvahs. But over here we're talking about that the yid signed after the kuti, and if and he made sure, the fact that he signed afterwards, he made sure that the kuti is a chaver. So the Gemara says, okay, so what about other stars? So rather we say that the reason why he left the room for the first guy is because he thought an older guy is going to come and sign it, and then the kuti came and pulled one So the Papa says this comes to tell me the chayra that by Gittin, since you have the two Eidim together, because Gzerim Mishum Kulchem, so we're never going to be worried that they're going to sign by itself. Then the Gemara said, Rabbi S says, Yeshida Bai, Ella Eid Echad Kuti Bilvad. So the Gemara says, what's it coming to teach me? I have a Mishnah tells me that Kol Get Sheyesh Alav Eid Kuti, puzzle. And by Mashenkin Gittin and Avodim it will work, which is Mashma 1. So why does it tell me against? The Gemara says, from our Mishnah alone, I would say 2 works. And why did it say 1? Is to tell me because even stars 1 will not work. Mashma that only 1 works and not 2. So the Gemara says today it doesn't work, but we learned the whole Ma'aseh that there was 2 Eidim there and it did work. So he says don't read Eidav but Eidai. Rabbi says no, really it was 2. Rabbi Gamliel is arguing and he's saying that he's machshir and he brings a story to show that 2 is okay. Then we said Kol Ashtaris which are brought from the Goyish court, even if they're signed in the Goyish court, are kosher except for Gittin Daf and Shechur Avadim. Rabbi Shimon argues and says that it does work. So the Gemara says, Kaposik Vitani, that there's no difference between a Mechida and a Matana. So the Gemara says, Mele Mechida works because when he gives the money, he's kain, and the star is just a raya that he actually brought, he did something. Because if he did not give the money, he would never get a star. But a Matana, exactly how is he being kainit? Must be with the star, but the star is just a regular shard. So how is he being kainit the Matana? So the Gemara says, Din the Machus Dina. Or you could learn Tani Chutz Megidei Nashim. Okay, then we said of Shimon Aimer, so the Mati asked your question, so he says that this is the opinion that holds Ede Mesira Karti, and therefore basically the signatures don't do anything, even Midrabanan. So the Papa says, the Cheder Rabbi Elazar agrees that Mezuyah Meteichi does do something. So he says here we're talking about Goyish names like he brought Hurmiz, Hurduki, Avduna, Bar Shiftai, Bar Kidri, Bati, Vinakamunas, known Gaisha names, that nobody will be confused thinking that this is a Mezuyiftik star. Okay, we'll stop here.